Good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for being here this morning. Especially thank you to P3, because I think this is one of the most amazing opportunities for parents and educators that we have in the city. TDSB got smart this year because we used to have our own parent conference every year on this exact same weekend. So we had a bit of an awakening, and we realized that we certainly didn't want to be taking on one of the most amazing conferences, again, as I mentioned, not just in our city, I believe, but anywhere with respect to the issues that we're grappling with in education today. Now, I was reading a couple weeks ago on this issue because it's an issue that's very hot in our own board. I want to read you a quote that I came across. It said, "The government of Ontario will end streaming and ensure that students who are in special education classes are more further integrated than ever before into regular classrooms." Program and Policy Memorandum 115, Ontario Government, 1992. It's not the first time. I'm so happy to see you. Hi, Mark. Didn't work out the way that we had hoped. I want to tell you, politicians are ready. Bureaucrats were ready. The activists were certainly ready. Most important people must be involved in any type of educational change. This matter. We're not ready. Teachers. I know. I was a teacher in 1992, teaching grade 9. I'm going to take a moment for just a little aside, you guys. I have to, because in 1992 I was teaching at the high school where I went to, Jarvis Collegiate. My man sitting right over there, his name is Steve, he was a student at Jarvis.
I could still be a student at Jarvis Collegiate.
So for any of you who sort of are connected to teaching in that way, I hope you know how I feel standing up here right now. Saying to myself that, wow, the young guy who was a student at Jarvis Collegiate, when I started teaching my teaching career, he was an amazing then. He's amazing now. He's the principal of Oakwood Collegiate. So I just thought that was important to note, especially in light of the other non-stressful issues that TDSB is dealing with right now. You may have read about some of it in the paper, among other things. So nice to have a happy moment. So let me tell you about teaching in 1993. Because we had a model where students were separated by perceived ability. And then all of a sudden, I found myself in a grade 9 geography classroom with a group of students who had a tremendous breadth of experiences, stories, and abilities. And even though this initiative came into place, people who were being charged with implementing it on a day-to-day basis did not have the requisite learning, experience, or will, I believe, to make it work. And it didn't. And it was no surprise. And even though philosophically this was an idea that so many different people believed in, because it was the right thing to do, we lost a golden opportunity. And when you lose golden opportunities like that, they don't come back again very often. And it makes me think about today. Because we got to a place in education where, because we didn't capitalize on that amazing opportunity, because of what I believe was a flawed process of implementation, there were many children, many families who were hurt. So what were the outcomes of that? Chipped away at it and talked a lot about it in the years afterwards. And at TDSB, we have the gift of having the most amazing research and planning department. And just because there was, and this is how simple as it was, you guys. There wasn't a lot of
noise or clamoring or drum beating. There were some people in our research department who were really, really curious about what happened with respect to outcomes for applied level students in TDSB versus academic level students in TDSB. So a woman called Gillian Perrick, in combination at that time with Dr. Rob Brown, who's a brilliant researcher, picked up the topic and created a report. And the report was called Structured Pathways in the TDSB. And it examined outcomes and trajectories of applied level students versus academic level students. And I can tell you, as a then principal, I loved structured pathways, but I didn't really need it to tell me what was happening. Because I want to tell you what I saw when I walked into an applied level classroom. All you needed to do was follow your eyes. And you may get a little bit uncomfortable in the next little while, because I'm going to put some things out on the table. And one of the hardest things for us to discuss in our systems today revolves around the topic of race. We better just put it out there. I mean, it's important. Let's look around the room. Not saying it to make anybody feel bad, because I'm in touch with my own privilege, and one of the things that I've learned is that it's not about a guilt. It's about being able to use that privilege to do the right thing. And I want to tell you, when I walked into those classrooms, where I became an administrator at Emory Collegiate, corner of Finch and Weston Road, I want to tell you, there was hardly a white face in any of the applied level classrooms. There just wasn't. A lot of boys. You want to dig a little deeper, go into some of their academic histories. Special education designations everywhere. You want to talk about socioeconomics? Throw that one in there. Poor, racialized students who came from specific neighborhoods. That's who was sitting in applied. And it often became a destination. So let me tell you what the destination would be. So you start school, because people talk about applied, and we talk a lot about grade 8 and what happens with the guidance counselors. I believe that landing in grade 9 applied has a lot more to do with what happens in kindergarten and maybe your postal code and maybe other demographic factors than it has to do with what the guidance counselor is going to tell you in grade 8. Respectfully. So you trace it all the way back there. And grade 9 applied then becomes a destination for certain types of students. And once you end up in applied, you have a far greater likelihood of being suspended from school. And we know about that pipeline, right? We know what then being suspended means. Matter of fact, it's interesting, because one of my portfolio areas is carrying in safe schools. So when I look, just out of curiosity, when I look at the kids who land in expulsion hearings, it's amazing to me how many of them have the applied level stream in common. It's amazing to me how many of them end up being criminalized. And I don't know necessarily what the relationship is and how all those things fit together and how those intersectionalities work, but I'll tell you it's a fact. And then let's keep going. Graduation outcomes. Application to post-secondary, which is a huge indicator, because we're graduating more students than ever before. And there's a debate about what that means and, to what extent graduation from high school then leads to success later in life. But that's for another day. But let me say that if you're in applied, you have less of a likelihood of graduating and less of a chance of applying to post-secondary. Structured Pathways told us all that in a very formal way. If you haven't seen it, it's public and it's online, and I believe that you should, if you're interested in the topic. So then what happens to these research reports? Because that's another big question that we have in our organization. We have more data than you can shake a stick at. We know the what now. We know. TDSB knows. So then it becomes incumbent upon us to address the data. And again, here's how it happened. A bunch of people in the then equity department who had this strong moral pull to look at it, picked up structured pathways. Because I'm going to tell you, nothing formal had happened in our system with that report. And it's one of the pitfalls of large systems. These types of reports sometimes get lost. There's no uptake of them. Now what? Now what? This group picked it up and created a report called Sifting, Sorting, and Selecting. Again, it was made public. And this time, and I'm going to tell you guys, I was there and I lived it, with some resistance, the report landed with the ultimate decision makers of our board. Because I want to tell you something. You want to get traction? You want to move something along? One-ofs are nice, and it's a good story, and the Star will write about it. And unless you build it into the larger strategic framework of the board, unless you bring it to your board of trustees,
Thank you.
unless you create that accountability structure, you're not going to have the long-term maintenance. Because, touch wood, something happens to the people who have the purpose. They're not there tomorrow. The principal changes. He goes somewhere else. The teachers who are passionate about it move along. It's over. And we are cursed with that happening in education over and over and over again. My friend Michael Kerr, who's sitting at the back there, who helped develop TDSB's first equity policy in 1999, kept reminding me of that. The policies, the boardroom, is where you have to bring things if you want long-term sustainability. So what we did is